That's getting
So
closer to your
yeah,
shop.
yeah. Is that you guys are feeling mango today?
Well, I think when I think about you, I think tropical and flare. So yeah.
Okay, mango it is. If this podcast goes sideways, it is on you.
It's interesting. It's been one lingering on our task list for a while, and yeah, put it out to all of you, and everyone seemed to show interest in a few topics, but this one seemed to be the biggest vote. So here we go. Um, the outcome, I think, just talking with you three, is to again hear what it's like in a shop dealing with severity. This podcast obviously was designed for shop owners to get talking, listening in, getting them off their island, and giving them a chance to know that they're not alone. So I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to share. We are going unscripted, so I'll walk you through a couple questions I think that are important. But other than that, let's get into it. So the
Giddy up.
topic of severity has been around for ever, well, at least as long as I can remember. Back in the day when I was in the shop, I do remember times where severity was brought up as a concern, meaning your severity is too high. This is obviously coming from the insurance and obviously the ones that we were on DRP with. So it wasn't something necessarily as big, I think, as it is nowadays, but maybe I'm wrong. So I'd like to know from you guys, first off, what does severity mean in each of your facilities or to each of your businesses, and is it as big as it sounds like it is these days?
Well, yeah, let's go first here. I find that the conversation of severity actually, I think, peaked about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, where it seemed every single report that we got from a DRP partner was really making that a priority of, hey, your severity is higher than your local shops. Obviously, you're padding your estimates is kind of the way that it seemed to be put to us. But at the end of the day, I think we were just putting what we were doing, right? And we still do just put what is required to fix the car safely. And I think the thing that offended me the most about severity is that you're being judged based on the worst estimates being written. So if somebody is unable to write a proper sheet or is willing to do the work for next to nothing and not care about the customer, that's who we were being judged against. And it just seems so wrong, because our job is to fix cars to pre-accident condition, and severity takes none of that into account. It's just a goalpost that moves, but it's a goalpost that has no bearing on what is right. It just is what it is. A metric used by insurance companies to try to maintain some sort of control over costs of repair.
So what I heard you say to you is that it's a mechanism of control on cost.
Mm-hmm.
And back to your comment about putting everything on the sheet that you're entitled to, which also requires photos to back that up.
Yeah.
What was your response? Like, what did you say in return?
Well, like at the end of the day, they approved any and all estimates that are done in the end. So whether we were above or below or at severity, they were still approving it because that was the right thing to do.
Right.
But then when you're having conversations about, how can we improve? How can we be better? Wow, you can do it for less. Right?
Okay. And coming from you, Joel, obviously the one out of the three of you holding the most, DRPs
Mm-hmm.
that in BC, Manitoba, mostly government insurance, obviously some private insurance, and maybe even of that, some DRP work.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we lost Todd for a moment, but Norm, is that the same thing Joel shared, whether in the government insurance world or even in the private, whether DRP or not? Does the word severity come up?
It's totally different here, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the boat on something, but that's what intrigued me about this topic, because when I read severity and that we were going to talk about it, I thought, what are we going to talk about? Then I remembered Joel was in the private market. Severity from an insurance standpoint in Manitoba, unless I'm missing a whole pile of emails from the insurance company, we never ever talk about it. It never comes up. I've never MPI, actually the only time severity comes up is when we're talking to to MPI on behalf of the industry as part of the ATA, the trade association, and even then we can't seem to get a beat on what the average severity is in Manitoba, because everybody seems to calculate it a little bit of a different way, right? So it gets a little bit tricky sometimes, but to just listening to what Joel said, a lot of it is like I said, foreign to me, but it's interesting, padding your estimates. To me, that where would that happen? Because in a way, like you said, first of all, you're getting approval, so that's pretty straightforward. But
Mm-hmm.
you're attaching pictures of everything. Like, we're in the digital era where you need to validate everything you're doing, and also the repair versus replace. We're replacing so many more parts right now, so that severity is even less in our control, right? Because I'm assuming that when they're talking about padding, the only thing you could really start to pad would be your repair times. But if a part is broken, it's broken. There's just no two ways about it. So, yeah, it's not an issue here in Manitoba.
Okay. Okay. And Todd's got some connection issues, but hopefully he can
Sorry,
capture
guys.
some of this, and it's all good. The question on the table, Todd, was Joel sharing severity as a big piece of conversation, especially in the past 6 years and moving forward, and Norm just sharing that he doesn't hear much or at all about it from anyone. I think you said, Norm.
No, and just actually, I should have answered the other part of your question. We're like 95% insurance work here. There's no private insurance in Manitoba. Um, and then some of it's private work directly for the customer, but
So
Okay.
I'm sort of on Norm's side of things. I think we're probably in the 90% provincial insurance work here. They have been tracking our what they call RCI, which you could call severity, which is what they call it, a repair cost index, which basically just weights us against other shops in our region. Has progressed the realization from the insurance company, and I don't know the inside the boardroom conversations, but we don't have a lot of control over repair cost index. It's so based on work mix. And for years our repair cost index was higher than the region, but we took more complex tow ins than anybody else in our region. So of course so it's like, we're solving a problem for you, and then you're going to hold that against us, like, of course. So on our provincial scorecard, the weighting of repair cost index has gone down. Is it super garbled? Can you
But
hear
it's still
anything
on
I
there?
say? It's still on there. Yep.
Yeah, you're
Yep.
good.
Okay.
it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
on there,
what
but the
is all
weighting of
included
it,
in that RC?
it's like just average repair cost across all brands and all severity.
Does it actually break it down? like specifically when you get that number, like labor part? Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be probably the closest thing to what we define severity as in the, I guess call it the Alberta market or any private is. And Joel, I'll let you answer to your own question. What do you know of that makes the number severity?
The estimate total.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
it. It's
Okay.
that simple, and to me, that's why it's useless, because it doesn't provide any value to the body shop and or the insurance company, in my opinion. I don't think them saying that, ooh, you're above severity without even including their own costs,
Yeah.
or the towing costs or the rental costs and the sublet costs and like everything all in one. I would love to help lower that number, or be part of a solution to keep that number in control, because that's the total cost. And if we're taking on a lot of the admin burden, and the insurance company is spending less on their own admin costs, okay, we're helping you out in that regard, but compensate us for it, right? And if you don't want to, then you guys can take on all the admin costs, and add that to your severity number, because that's what's actually being spent. In a sense, yes. I don't want to get into that steering question too hard, but that is part of the tool where if they have a choice between 3 chain shops and one chain has a lower severity, who's getting the assignments? And that would be the primary use of that tool, because if they can send it to the low severity shops over and over and over again, hey, we're talking about millions of dollars at the end of the year. That would be something that people would do, or just turn on not allow tow-ins anymore, right? So in the end, you're not serving the insurance company, right? Like you earlier were doing all the high severity jobs and you're worried about being punished. Well, same thing here. You take on those tow-ins and you get those 30, 60-day ones, and the rental costs are high. Yeah, now your severity is a big issue.
It's so interesting, and it's so, I guess, foreign is the word to me. I mean, when I look at severity from an insurance company standpoint, they should be, obviously it's something they want to monitor, but it should be used to determine what their rates are going to be in upcoming years, and determine what the cost of repairing certain types of vehicles are. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that's what makes the most sense. And the thing with severity that and this is probably me not understanding how the whole insurance world works, but severity is driven a lot by the OEM and construction design, like Todd alluded to earlier. But it's also really impacted by consumer demand, right? Like the consumer demands all these extra features, right? They demand the radar cruise, and that module happens to be located in a prime crash location up front, and that module's worth $3,000. Well, they're right. Is literally the first thing that goes, right? So, they're so expensive. So I mean, consumer demand is driving some of this, and some of that weight should be back on the consumer, right? If you're going to buy a vehicle that is an expensive vehicle with a lot of features, that's going to cost more to repair. Should it not cost more to insure?
Yes.
Right? And that's not always the case,
No.
right?
Well, the two things I'm hearing are, again, the desire to control loss, which we all want to do in business. I mean, if you indeed are not profitable, you either decrease costs or increase sales. It's pretty simple. And we can get back to that because, again, I know it's been used to say, like, severity, not using things like alternative parts, or, again, as you shared, Joel, the labor could definitely determine it, how much to repair a panel. That's argued and cut back. Does that mean we're going to do less proper repair on the panel? I mean, the control of cost is one thing, but the other thing I heard you shared, Joel, is then being used as a, call it a weapon to say, listen, you're higher than everyone else in your region, so you need to shape up or we're going to have problems.
Yeah.
I do recall that coming up in our business where, yeah, it's like, well, we don't want to lose a DRP because that means we're going to lose work. So we better, go back to our repair planners and say, hey, like, you need to increase aftermarket parts and go easy on the repair times. Like, to blend the two, I think, is where it gets murky and it starts to erode trust. It feels like micromanagement. Like, why are you trying to decrease severity when we're not able to have a conversation about fair rate? And then, of course, the good old question of safety and of course, quality and safety. So if indeed we are all responsible to repair the car properly in the shortest amount of time possible and control costs, that would be one question. At the same time, is it true? Are there, in your opinion, Joel, is there a worry that if your severity is the highest that you could ultimately lose that DRP just for the sake of a number?
I think that is definitely a possibility. And, and whether it's a full on, like you just said, or whether that tap is metered a little bit, we've all felt that before as well, too.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a real concern. Yep.
Okay.
So is that something, and again, because I don't understand the way it works, is that something like when you have these DRP contracts with private insurance companies, do they talk about severity and expectations in that contract?
Yep.
They do, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
It's all in there. And like we just basically brought up, I think, the biggest point on why severity has become an issue. And we all know that it's parts and parts cost, right? And mostly with safety equipment, but also just simple headlights, right? The left front headlight is, for some reason, the most expensive headlight on every vehicle because it's the most common part to get hit, right? But why is there so much pressure on auto body repair facilities to lower cost when they aren't the largest factor in how costs are rising?
They're the controllable one. That's the answer.
Like, how much money is spent lobbying against auto body shops and or spent on advertising instead of maybe working with the OEMs to make cars, engineered just a little more repairable, or to make sure that we're not throwing brand new cars into the landfill because a headlight and a airbag sensor went off, and now we're literally throwing a very good car, very repairable car, in the landfill because of parts costs.
Yeah, I remember that one. If we can't control severity, we're going to see more write-offs, so less work for the shops. And that was actually used to say that's why you need to control it. But it's like, again, other than the responsibility of each of your businesses at the time of dismantle and, laying everything out, deciding what it needs, proper repairs, make this car safe so it can handle a collision again, opens up all those conversations about, again, how much repair is needed, what's needed to fix the car properly, what type of parts, so we can get into that a little bit, because that was another thing. You need to increase your alternative parts usage to lower the costs, and then the argument, well, what does that do to the quality, right?
Yeah.
So, but I love, Norm, that you're foreign to it. Todd's got a little taste of it. Joel's definitely, lived it. I have
In the
too.
thick of it, yeah.
I think it's a great thing to keep talking about because it's going to get us somewhere to what should be focused on. We cannot control how the car reacts in a collision. We cannot control how much it takes to fix the car. There's a couple things we could look at. But as you alluded to, Joel, everything that you're estimating and uploading is getting approved. So that means it makes sense in the photo.
Yeah.
or in the report. So if there was a concern of somebody padding their estimates, that would be a different conversation. That would
Yeah.
be meeting with the shop, meeting with the repair planners, and saying, "Hey, help us understand better why you're charging what you're charging." That's a per estimate situation, not a monthly or annual report number saying, "Hey, you need to be lower."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like here
As I think
you
Todd
fixed.
alluded to too, taking some of the nastier, bigger hits, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like in
It's,
our
you know, and
region.
just to completely throw a wrench in your
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, Todd. Go
Well,
ahead.
there's just obviously a delay there, but sorry, my connection sucks, you guys. It's not good. I
No,
was just
we
saying
can cut that out. It's fine.
in our region, it was just it's like, well, what do you want to happen? You want all the shops to stop fixing the most complex repairs? Like, what are our options here, guys? Like, should you want to make sure they get spread thinly? Then just go one here, one here, one. Like, what's the point of this? You got shops with different strengths. Like, don't punish them for their repair costs. Yeah, like, let's make good decisions, right? And I think that's probably where it came from. But he's like, well, don't be wasteful. Don't put OEM parts on when they don't need to be. I would assume.
Because what I've also seen, we touched base on it years ago, but it's bigger now. Joel, you can attest to it. Is indeed informing the vehicle owner once the vehicle has been dismantled and estimated that if indeed alternative parts are being used or there's additional repairs that are not being approved, that they're starting to have to foot that difference.
Yep. That has definitely been something that we have delved into. Repair procedures not being covered or clean for delivery. Some of those little things that have been called the cost of doing business for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
We might not agree on that statement, but we have worked with some of our customers in highlighting that insurance company A pays for this, and insurance company B only pays this much for this, and insurance company C, which you have, they're not paying for that, but we're still going to do it. And there are going to be costs to the consumer at the end. Some cost coverages.
Doesn't it?
It does, but
yeah.
like I think paint materials has been the biggest one on that one. We have seen, for years it's been about a 6 to 7% increase every year. Now we're almost seeing them every 6 months. So paint material cost is a huge one, and we've supplemented to the customers quite a few times on that one, and it's not fun, but that should be part of the cost of the claim, right?
For sure. And how much do shops play that game? Just so I understand, like, would would shops advocate to the customer and say, "Hey, by the way, you had to pay this extra for this on this claim. Had you been with insurance company A, you wouldn't have had to pay for that because they cover that." Do shops get involved in that?
Those conversations do happen. Carefully, of course. Can be given a
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
No, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, it seems like one of those things that maybe I said the quiet part out loud, but I'm just interested in, like, where, can collision repair shops in those markets take back some of that control in the way that they interact with customers, and then put the insurance companies on notice and say, look, if you're not going to step up, we're going to throw you under the bus and we're going to carry on. And I understand it's more complicated than that,
yeah.
but have you seen that play out in your market?
Well, we had a bit of an organization going here in the past year and a half, where a whole bunch of us local auto body shops were having conversations about what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and not even never really talking about like labor rate compensation or anything like that, but repair planning and making sure the vehicle is repaired properly, and everybody was on board to start surcharging for what insurance companies weren't paying for. Everybody around was going to do it.
Mm.
But we also know that doesn't always work out that way. The
No.
financial markets haven't been the greatest. Some people got a little bit slow and
Yep.
went right back to
All
the
of a
status
sudden.
quo.
Yep.
So, I think we talked about this on a previous podcast. You guys are allowed to surcharge the customer if you so choose to do so.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I know we're not here
We're
in
not.
Manitoba, and
Yeah.
I don't think, Todd, you
No.
guys are in
No.
BC either, right?
No. And honestly, that's probably, as much as I dislike it, it's probably for the better that we aren't, that we have to, like, as an industry, we have to, like, make those choices to, it's like, are we doing the necessary thing? Are we doing the right thing? Are we, you know, like, because I think it sucks to have to take money out of people's pockets when they're not necessarily at fault, or, you know, it's like, this, it just kind of sucks. Like, who wants to slap a bill to, like, I don't. I just,
But,
like,
you know, it's,
hand them their car back and go, here you go. Like, all the right things have been done. We've been paid fairly.
yeah.
But that's it right there. It's the paid fairly part.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure all of you have seen a sheet on a car that didn't add up, like that toner that you had to pull that no one really knew about, and it's $2,200 a quart. And you have computer systems now that spit that out, and you might then need to submit to the insurance and say, hey, this is an anomaly.
So here's devil's advocate, Lenny. Can I be devil's advocate for a minute?
No.
Come on, man. Let me do it.
Absolutely, buddy.
I like have a bit of beef with that, and not because we shouldn't be profitable, but I do think that shops should have good enough data to work on averages a little bit. Like, you shouldn't necessarily, you know, like, if you're going to charge them for that expensive toner, say you've had a good profit month of materials, and you're like, no, I'm gonna charge the customer for this. And I mean, maybe that's okay, and maybe it's not. I'm not like, I'm not trying to make people's business decisions for them, but I do think that, like, if you make a lot of money on a job painting it, are you giving them a refund? Like, especially to a payer, to an insurance company, can you go like, hey, sorry, yeah, we actually did really well on that job. Here's some money back on materials to pay, but we need you to pay extra. You know, like, I feel like if you're good overall and you have good data to support that, just like they pluck the outliers out of their reporting, I think we should pluck them out of ours. As long as the averages are good, let's not be too greedy. Like, this is, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I appreciate that. I don't necessarily know it's about greed. I think most shops are good. I think most shops are fair.
Yeah.
Our environment requires us to literally make sure that we capture everything we possibly can. And
yes,
I know there's lots of shops that are not doing that well.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not profitable, and they are, unfortunately, you know, turning to anger because it's hard when you're not making money. So take a look at your own business first, 100%. It's where it's coming from is that more and more there's no real way of knowing. There's, you know, the same with the Blend Study podcast, right? It was really not where are these numbers coming from? Where are the rates for materials? How does that balance to what actual materials cost? So I'm 100% with you. You got it, like Norma loves this, right? You got to know your numbers, and you got to be.
I was just gonna say that. I think that is I agree with you 100%, Todd. As long as you know your numbers, right? You gotta know. So
like, when I get my reporting out of my paint system, and you know what? I look at the summary. I'm not gonna go in there and light that painter on fire for overpouring, or I'm not gonna look at that one car that, man, we actually paid. We lost mega money painting that car. I'm not like, I just, if the summary looks within a range, it like, why go further than that? But how many shops out there don't even have paint manager reporting?
Right. Yeah. So knowing your numbers, and I'll flip that back to you, Todd. What if it doesn't add up? Have you ever run into that?
Definitely. Definitely,
And then what have you done?
but you need to be able to go dig, and you need to be able to go look and pull those files and go, okay, what do we do here? Well, it turns out that Dodge has this really ugly white color that has glass flake in it, $1,000 for like a whatever it is, a little quarter pint.
Right.
Yeah, you know what? And then you find out that, like, oh yeah, guess what? They had to redo that. You might have been, and it's like, oh, okay, well, at least I know where that came from now, right? Like, but if you
Yep.
don't have that data, you're just going off your, like, flying blind,
Yep.
right?
Love it.
So,
And
yeah,
I love that I
what,
picked the expensive toner conversation just to get under your skin there. I love it. It's so good.
Or and you know what, like Todd, in my opinion, though, you're talking about averages, and that's the way it's always been, right? There's a lot of different programs up there now. Like Eagle MMS is growing huge in the States right now, and a little bit into Canada for its own paint materials calculator. Um, but even still, to do something like that with every vehicle that you have, you get a report and it sends back your management system, and here's the paint invoice, right? You can make your 20% every single time instead of having an 80% and a minus 30%. And, let's just make 20% on every single paint job when it comes to materials. Is there anything wrong with that? Because I can go to 7-Eleven and buy a Coke, and I'll go buy the Coke the next day, and I'll go buy a Pepsi the next day, and I know that that's the cost, right? Well, same with when we're painting a vehicle. There's a material cost every time. I don't think it's wrong to bill accordingly.
Yeah, I guess you can't just do both, right?
Yeah. And like obviously if you have a redo like Todd said and you include that in your report and mark it up, well, yeah, that's unethical business practices, and those are some things that people would do, but not us, right?
Yeah, I'll kind of change gears here, but on the topic of paint materials, is the technology's come a long way. I would say to any shop that isn't, doesn't know their numbers, you need to start doing that. And there's people out there that can help you, including your suppliers and fellow shop owners that are doing it. What's happening though is you are also, as a shop owner, um, wise to make sure that you do indeed know what's going through that mixing room and onto the car. And the technology now is totally capable per RO to spit that out. And that's what's starting to raise some eyebrows on material costs when it's just a simple flat rate per car compared to what were we actually putting on it. And about 2 years ago, Joel, you and I sat down and laid out a profitability process, which was, hey, we are entitled to charge for what we need to fix the car properly on all aspects: labor, parts, materials. Let's do this right. If you are on a DRP agreement, you're going to want to make sure that you have something to back up what you've put on that vehicle that would then question the rate you're getting paid. Now, nickel and diming obviously is not the intention. It shouldn't be. I'm with you, Todd, on the averages, but you start to see 10, 20, even 30% fluctuation, and you start digging, and we've seen as much as $500 or $600 on one paint repair. I think, Joel, is what you
Oh, yeah.
found. It started to create the conversation, and I think that's what's key. Is if you're in a DRP agreement, you've already signed off that this is the rate, this is the materials I'm getting. That's still possible. You can still show on a per job basis if there's some anomaly.
Mm-hmm.
not the redo, but on the fact that you are paid for the first time the right amount of materials. So it's an interesting game, because that's what it feels like when you're getting told, like, you're too high and you need to drop it or you're gonna potentially lose this work. So I guess for Joel's sake, or those who are working in private insurance world, what would you say an owner can do when they're approached and said your severity is too high? And if you don't control it or figure something out, it could cost you this, this agreement or renewal or whatever, however they gauge it. What would your advice be?
Norm, you got anything to add first? Because I might go off here a little bit.
No, hey, you know what? Let me grab my tea and have at it.
Alrighty. Well, myself, I would just truly love to see a total cost of claim number that is shared with body shops and with industry as a whole. But I think it just needs to come down to paying us upfront to get the job started the right way. It blows my mind at times when there's a snap sheet done from photos on the photo app from certain insurance companies, and then that estimate gets sent to us, and they want us to order parts and book them in, and they're like, no, we're going to bring them in anyways. We're going to do a disassembly, find all parts. So we do that, and we submit our estimate, and then, you know what? We're going to hire an independent. So then an independent is hired, and the vehicle sits for another few days, and then the independent writes the sheet, and the independents missed some of the stuff that we had on there. So now we're supplementing the independence sheets. Now we're at supplement 2 now.
Oh
They've
my!
paid an outside adjuster. They've been paying for rental costs. And there's been emails going back and forth from the insurance admin staff to our admin staff saying, hey, is this booked in yet? Hey, have parts been ordered? Oh, did you get authorization signed? All this stuff is happening. And nothing's been done yet other than a parts verification for the job. That just seems absolutely wasteful. And we just added cost for the appraiser to come out and view it, the delays in time, the emails, the phone calls. You want to talk about severity? We just added thousands of dollars of severity to that whole claim without even talking about the fenders and the bolts and the paint. That is what needs to happen. Yeah. So that whole process that I went through, though, provides zero value to the customer, zero value to the insurance company, and zero value to the body shop. Nobody won in that scenario. But we got to make sure they're doing it right to pinch our pennies, right? So pay the body shop to do a repair plan. Literally schedule it in. You're taking it apart, and we're going to pay you to do that. And you get rid of the independent, you get rid of the emails, you get rid of phone calls, we send it in, and we're still going to document like we do everything else, right? Just like you guys are right now. You're taking photos of your repair, you're taking photos of your primer, you got all your invoices. Like, once that is done, everything goes super smoothly. And I know as an industry that if we were trusted to do what we do for a living, that we could save the industry a lot of money. Yeah. And we might even make more well.
So I'll put a plug in for our last podcast, which was about repair planning and the responsibility of the shop to do a proper dismantle. Make sure that they are very clear, both in documentation and photographs, whatever it takes to make sure the insurance can see what's happened to the vehicle. Sadly, that's not the case for every shop. There are still lots of shops that are not doing proper dismantles. And so I could see at times why it can be hard to say, well, let's just go with that. I mean, I see where you're going, Joel. I think it's possible. I know it's possible. You guys are doing, all three of you are doing exactly what I just described and what we talked about in the last podcast. So I guess the cool thing about, like, Norm, you're saying it's a pretty foreign word, and Todd, you don't seem really swayed by it. Joel has alluded to that times where when it does get quieter, less work, let's say, out there, because to be honest, the last couple of years have been really busy for shops. It's still a real thing that if indeed the work does start to dry up, that becomes a real fear, right? Of what am I going to do if I don't have, agreements with, insurance companies to get work to my door. So I guess where I'm hoping to go with this conversation is anyone listening in that is a shop owner. There's a whole lot of little nuggets in there you can do to first go and see your own business, right? Back to your number um, comment. I guess that was mine. Norm, you've talked a lot about knowing your numbers, and I guess the hope what I'm hoping for is that shops can say, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I educate myself? How do I then take a look internally at the costs we're losing? Because again, if you're not focused on that, you're losing. And then indeed, how do we, support each other as shops? Just say, look, you don't have to feel like this is a fight, right? If you're doing it fair and you're laying it out, I mean, why would it be a concern? Like why would you be dropped on a DRP if you're the highest severity in your neighborhood? If indeed, like you said, Todd, know your numbers and say, well, the reason my severity is higher is I took, 32 tow-ins versus other shops. Joel, I don't actually know if you have access to that. Do you know what your own industry numbers are?
What my severity is right now?
Well, and compared to other shops, are you?
No, I do not have that number right now. So, Norm, what do you say to me? Will they provide it? Yes. Yeah.
They will, yeah.
Some are better than others in their reporting.
So what I sense is that's another great thing a shop owner can do is not panic and not feel threatened. I mean, I do believe it's possible to have a cordial conversation and say, well, let's talk. Like, show me why, because I'm certain there's a reason, and I know if I'm walking out on my floor and seeing my people doing diligence in what they're choosing for labor, what they're choosing for parts, we are all indeed still looking at what alternative parts might work, might not, and that's just a reality. You could indeed, as a shop owner, say, hey, I'd like to sit down and talk about the numbers. But I'm curious, Joel, is that happening? Is that time being taken to sit down and understand it? Or
See, like when we were fully independent, those conversations were definitely more prevalent because we would meet with each individual DRP annually. Now that we're part of a network, those conversations are more of a corporate conversation and then passed down to the individual members as a directive more so than a conversation, I guess I should say.
And this is where I'm going with it. So I sense then you would, in your case, or anyone who's part of a network, actually go to the network and say, hey, we need to, sit down and analyze this.
Yep.
Or further step is there a way shops could start to share that themselves? Do you have a way of putting it out there and saying, just so you guys know, it's not private knowledge, this is my severity, this is why it's that way? Would that bring any value to the industry if you found a way of keeping a running tally on your severity? Not profitability. That's just, that's it's not relevant in my mind at the moment. The actual total cost of repair in your region or in your, I guess, even your company. Would that be possible, and would there be value to it?
If it was total cost of repair, yes. If it's just severity, no. I don't really think there's any value in that. But if there's total cost of repair, I want to be part of that conversation with each and every insurance company. That's something that, as we improve in our repair planning, we're going to provide efficiencies for the insurance company. But if I'm doing better repair planning, then I'm repairing cars better and faster. That's where I make my money. I don't make it on. Exactly. Sure. Like if you think of from keys to keys has been a metric that's been used, but I think the biggest problem right now is accident to parts list, right? To a full parts order. If we lower that number by 1 day or 5 days, that's a huge value to an insurance company, but it really doesn't give me a ton of value per se, right? Like monetarily, it allows me to schedule better and stuff like that. But I think the biggest value is to the insurance company themselves.
So back to that comment we made about the profitability process that we developed about 2 years ago. It was a clear, laid out way on how to address when you're concerned whether you're getting paid for what you're actually doing. Follow those steps, especially if you're in a DRP agreement. You can definitely go to the estimate. You can go to the materials you spent, parts you spent. Obviously, would require you to talk to your DRP and say, hey, whether this is one sheet or the last 20, you're only as good as your last repair plan. Therefore, you're only as good as your last estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Take it one at a time. Once you know your numbers and you've compared it. If you are still, again, seeing a trend that is going against what you're trying to get paid for, obviously with your network would be a reason why you're part of a network. Is the support there to say, hey, we need to talk. And then we talked a little bit of what to do when you're not in a DRP agreement, or indeed a position where you sense you're not getting paid. It isn't just throw the insurance company out into the mud and go after the owner. It's educating the insurance to say, look, we still have to fix this car properly. We have all our numbers or our data in place. We need to be compensated, or else we need to talk to the owner. And back to you guys in the provincial side, you're not actually allowed to do that. So I'm curious, are you confident, Norm? It looks like we just lost Todd. That you are getting paid properly
in terms of overall compensation rate, or for the tasks that we're already doing?
Yes.
I mean, it's easy to go sideways on that conversation. Overall, no, I don't think we are getting compensated properly.
Okay.
What I keep referring back to in conversations with the insurance companies is that year after year, or I should say negotiation year after negotiation year, the insurance company draws a line in the sand and says, okay, you're telling me this is what your paint materials cost, this is how much they've gone up. We disagree. We're only going to pay you this. We feel this is accurate. Okay. We don't agree with it. We take it. 5 years goes by, however many years go by, and now it's time to look at those rates again. We have clear numbers showing cost increase. We have inflationary numbers. So to me, if they drew that line in the sand the first time, and whether we agreed with it or not, they felt that was accurate, wouldn't the natural thing to do is just go up with inflation and the additional costs of the paint and just keep moving that along? But that's not what happens. Instead, they cut that down again, and then the next time they'll cut again. So we're falling behind all the time. I mean, it makes no sense. We always talk about different labor rates in different markets, and I mean, Saskatchewan has always been an outlier in terms of labor rate as a whole. But even their paint material rate, they're like $20 an hour ahead of us, which is like, probably $25 an hour ahead of ICB. No, actually, we're pretty close to ICBC. But how do you have that much of a difference? Right? Like, how can you have that, like $20 an hour? And we're talking like, from in the 50s to in the 70s. How?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we know paint doesn't cost more in that market than it does in the others. So how?
Operate.
So to answer your question, no, we're not getting compensated properly, right?
Oh no,
we
definitely.
look at the inflation numbers; they have not kept up with that, And the thing that gets me is, in these public insurance markets where the government comes in and mandates a minimum wage increase.
Yeah.
Well, in a normal business, you pass that on to the consumer, right? The grocery store passes that on to the consumer. We're not in a position to do that. So the government hands us this mandatory minimum wage increase, but we got to eat that, right? Because it doesn't affect just minimum wage workers. The whole scale has to go up. Apprenticeship rates are based on minimum wage plus a percentage, and that trickles all the way up the food chain, right? So if your minimum wage tech, if you have one, is getting an increase, everybody else is going to expect an increase all the way up to your top tier guy. So
yeah.
But that just doesn't happen. So I think we're, I'll speak for Manitoba. We're in a position here where, go ahead.
I was just thinking from the time that we began in business, Norm, and I'm sure it's similar to you, but apprentice wages have more than doubled. My connectivity sucks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna sit here quietly. Yeah, you're right. That's a good conversation.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
No, it's all. You're right, and I always tell this story. I remember my first job where I got on with the shop, which I had, great memories. It was fun, but I remember being an 18-year-old kid fresh out of Red River College. I start this job, and I kind of did like an apprenticeship thing, where you work 2 weeks, and then I'm like, okay, today's the day I'm going to pop the question. Do I have a job here? And so I broke down all my costs, my rent, car payments, my fuel. I'm like, I'm walking in this office and I am not taking a dime less than $10 an hour. I will not. Well, I left that room making 8 something, which was minimum wage at that time, right? And it's just like, that's the way it is. So, but I mean, $8, I mean, that's, it's a long time ago, but it's not that long ago.
No.
Yeah.
But we're way past that now.
Craziness.
So
isn't it?
I think just to wrap this up, because I love the fact that we got some differences in severity, feelings around it, but as an industry, talking about, fair compensation, wouldn't it be nice that we band together, not against, but together as shops, educate ourselves better, how to know our numbers, how to do proper procedure, proper repair plans, as you alluded to, Joe. Follow what's required, which is proper estimate, proper photos. Yeah, why does it get foggy? Why do shops feel like they're on an island, whether in a certain region, province? Why does it keep getting talked about? It's not the first podcast or even conversation about severity. Where does it stop, or where do we begin? How do we start to get shops to say, look, there are ways to set some standards, and therefore work as an industry to say, hey, we need to relook at how this industry is compensated for repairing vehicles. But then it seems to just fizzle. Like no one really wants to touch that, right? Like don't bring that up. You might get in trouble.
It's all due to
trouble from
antitrust and anti-competition or whatever they call it. All these different laws that are in place, and it's like you got to respect them. And shops don't really we're not allowed to get together and talk about that, and maybe we shouldn't, but the insurance companies are. So it's like why doesn't it apply across the board?
Totally.
I think I have the easiest and fastest way for possible change to happen within this industry is for a very brave, passionate CEO of one of these insurance companies to finally decide that he's not going to reinvent the DRP agreement, but he's actually going to reinvent it. Because usually they just freaking repurpose it. They put out the same thing that was done 10 years ago and 5 years ago, and they said, this is the one that's going to truly, truly drive profits for us. But no, it's going to take the CEO of one of those insurance companies to say, you know what, we're restarting. Let's do the DRP agreement based on where the work is being done. And let's help these body shops be good.
Mm-hmm.
That is the way that it'll change, because they're going to spend half as much money on marketing, because now they're going to have word of mouth, because those cars are going to get fixed faster and better. And that insurance company will become the one. And that'll become the new model for how insurance companies handle claims. So until an insurance company CEO wants to be the brave and bold disruptor, I don't see much changing.
Yeah, interesting perspective.
So is there any merit to flipping that and saying to either a shop owner or owners to also be brave and bold and go first and design it?
No, that's
there is
like
that.
Yeah, there is that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I'm after. That's the things I can change, right? We can pull a podcast together. We can get shop owners talking. Vent some stuff. Share your frustrations. Sure. What I love about you guys is you're you're always right in the fact that, hey, business is business, and in a way like a game, you got to continue to figure out strategies, right? Some win, some lost, but I don't take you guys as thinking anyone's evil out there. It's just sometimes it's frustrating because you hit a wall, you know it's a problem, and now you feel alone. So again, I'll invite anyone listening to say, look, there is 100% ways that shops can start to talk together, and maintain a trust that we're really here to benefit the industry. I get it. Maybe the wives' tale. I don't know. I can't say names because I don't know who it was. But was it not years ago where shops got together and said, "Hey, we need to work together to reevaluate and rediscuss proper rates," and they all did. And so those paying said, "Yeah, okay, we'll do it." And then there was that guy, right, who through the back door took a lower rate and screwed everyone.
Yep.
I heard it once. I don't actually know if it's true. Like, it sounds to me that wouldn't happen in Manitoba or BC, but in Alberta, Joel, is that true? Somebody would then go and sign a deal through the back door and screw the...
It's been done since the days of my father, and there are certain people within the industry that I was told not to associate with because that's what they did. And
right,
yeah, it perpetuates. It's
okay. So let's do this then. On the topic of severity, back to what we shared. If a shop's getting approached by it with a feeling that you're too high, what I heard you guys share is you got to know your numbers first, right? We've had plenty of time on podcasts talking about you got to do proper process, right? You're up against all kinds of metrics, including lack of skills and all these other things. So you got to get some help in developing your people. And by all means, if you're approached on it, don't panic, right? That's a signal that you need to get back into it and say, okay, let's talk. I would love to put the invite out, and I think all of you guys would be good with it. If there is somebody listening saying, well, y'all really pretty, but I've tried that and it didn't work, I'd love to hear from you, because anytime that we've actually had to get down to the nitty gritty, it wasn't a battle, it was a reality. Like, look, here's where we're at. At the same time, I don't quite know where this is going to go, and I hope it turns into some future conversation. What are the things that actually do need to be talked about? How do we start to, stop picking at all the things that are annoying and ugly in this industry and start to, go after the things that do matter? How do we create better standards across an industry? How do we help the industry do better, training and bringing up of technicians? This isn't just designed to complain. It's part of it, or to vent, but it's the solution piece, right? So I'll leave it at that unless there's anything you guys want to close with on the actual topic of severity, or if there's any concern in your your businesses of fair compensation. But hopefully this is going to stir up some feedback from people to say, hey, here's what we should actually be talking about. Here's what we as an industry can do. That's what I hope for. So.
Love it. Sounds good.
Awesome.
I'm good.
Sweet. Okay. Right on. Appreciate it, guys. Again, I know we went over a little bit of time. We can cut it off there.